I didn't know my life was about to split into a before and an after the moment Child Protective Services called my phone on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was on my lunch break at the warehouse, sitting in my car with the engine off, eating a protein bar and scrolling through nothing important. My life was simple, predictable, quiet. I had fought hard for that quiet after years of chaos. Then the phone rang. "Is this Marina Lopez?" the woman asked. "Yes. My name is Angela Ruiz. I'm calling from Child Protective Services." My stomach dropped. She asked if I knew a woman named David Morales. The name hit like cold water. David had been part of my worst years. 12 years ago, when I was drinking every day, when I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. We were together for a few reckless months before I got arrested for DUI and spent 4 months in jail. When I got out, he was gone. I thought that chapter was buried. Angela's next sentence cracked my world open. "David has a daughter. Her name is Sophia Morales. She's 11 years old, and your name is listed as her mother." I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My what? "Sophia was removed from her father's care due to drug use and neglect. Your name is on her birth certificate. We've been trying to locate you for months." The air felt thin. Angela gave me two options. I could take emergency custody of Sophia, or she would enter foster care. An 11-year-old girl I had never met. My daughter. I had been sober for 8 years. I worked full-time at a warehouse. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment. My routine was my lifeline. I didn't date. I didn't party. I didn't invite chaos. And now the state was asking me to become someone's mother overnight. "I need time," I whispered. "You have until Friday," Angela replied gently. "After that, we'll have to place her." That afternoon, I didn't go back inside right away. I just sat there, because in that moment, my quiet, controlled life was already gone. And I had no idea whether I was strong enough to step into the role fate had just handed me. I'm Marina Lopez, 42 years old, and for 8 years, I've lived like someone who's afraid of her own shadow. Not because I'm weak, because I know exactly what happens when I let the wrong version of myself take the wheel. People hear 8 years sober, and they imagine a redemption montage, sunrise jogs, therapy breakthroughs, dramatic speeches. My truth is smaller than that. My truth is a calendar taped to the fridge. A strict bedtime, a bank app I check twice a day, a routine so boring it feels like armor. I work at a warehouse outside the city. Inventory, loading schedules, scanning pallets, the kind of job where the hours are long but the rules are clear. I like clear rules. Clear rules don't tempt you. Clear rules don't lie to you. I live alone in a small apartment with beige walls and secondhand furniture. The place isn't stylish, but it's mine. It's clean. It doesn't smell like stale alcohol. It doesn't echo with shouting, slammed doors, police sirens. Nothing like the years I crawled through before I got sober. Because before this life, there was another one. 12 years ago, I was someone you wouldn't have trusted with a houseplant. I drank like it was a job. I laughed too loud, cried too easily, made promises I couldn't keep. I dated men who lived in chaos because chaos felt familiar. That's how I met David Morales. It was at a dive bar near downtown, one of those places with sticky floors and neon beer signs that make everyone look a little sick. He bought me a shot. I bought him one back. We talked like we were the only two people in the room, like we'd known each other forever. He was charming in that dangerous way. Funny, smooth, always making you feel like you were special, until you realized he made everyone feel that way. We were together for maybe 6 months. 6 months of late-night texting, sloppy apologies, and mornings where I'd wake up with my mouth dry and my memory full of holes. Then came the DUI. I can still picture it like a freeze frame. Flashing lights in my rearview mirror, my heart trying to claw its way out of my chest, my hands shaking as I tried to act normal. 4 months in jail sobered me in the most brutal way. When I got out, David was gone. Not a goodbye note, not a text, not even a rumor. Just gone. I told myself that was for the best, that I deserved the silence, that the universe had cut the cord on a toxic chapter. I rebuilt myself like someone stacking bricks with trembling hands. I went to meetings. I got a sponsor. I stayed away from bars. I stayed away from friends who only called after midnight. And slowly I became stable. Not happy all the time, not healed perfectly, but stable. The kind of stable where you can breathe again. I had a small circle. My sister Carla, younger than me, always trying to believe the best in people. And my brother Michael, older, blunt, the type who thinks empathy is the same thing as weakness. Our parents lived far away in Arizona. We weren't close. They loved giving advice from a distance more than they loved actually showing up. Still, even with that imperfect family, I thought I understood what my life was. I thought my biggest battle was keeping myself sober. Then, on that Tuesday, CPS called and reminded me that my past wasn't finished with me. When Angela said my name was on Sophia's birth certificate, my first reaction wasn't joy. It was panic. Because the truth was, I didn't feel like a mother. I felt like a woman who had barely learned how to mother herself. And yet, suddenly, an 11-year-old girl's entire future was hanging on my answer. I spent the next few days trying to pretend that nothing was different, but the truth was, everything had shifted. Each day felt like a countdown. The weight of the decision was heavy on me, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff and had no idea if I was going to fall or fly. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I was barely keeping myself together. How could I bring someone else into the fold? But I couldn't ignore it. The calls kept coming. The paperwork piled up. I had to decide. I went over every possible scenario, but none of them made sense. Sophia wasn't a child I had raised or even known, and yet here I was, her legal guardian by default. A daughter I didn't ask for, a past I hadn't even known existed, suddenly demanding my attention. "Marina, are you sure about this?" My brother Michael called again, his voice thick with concern. "I don't know yet, Mike," I admitted, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. I was parked outside a grocery store, just sitting there, staring at the list of things I needed to buy. I could barely bring myself to get out of the car. "You've worked hard to stay sober. You've fought for years to stay clean, to build a stable life. This could ruin all of it," he continued, trying to reason with me. I didn't answer right away. What could I say? He wasn't wrong. My life had been fragile, pieced together like a puzzle with missing parts. But what was I supposed to do? Let a little girl, a part of my past, fall through the cracks because I wasn't ready? "I'm doing the right thing," I said, but even I didn't believe my own words. My heart was pounding, every cell in my body screaming that I was about to make a mistake. The worst part was how quiet it was at home. When I walked into my apartment, it was like the walls themselves were waiting for me to decide. The silence in that small place was oppressive, like I could hear the echoes of a future that didn't belong to me. I found the box of old documents from my past, the DUI papers, the court records, the letters from the meetings I used to attend. I hadn't opened the box in years, but now, sitting in the middle of my living room, it felt like the only thing I could do to keep my head from spinning. It was a reminder of the mistakes I had worked so hard to escape. The last thing I wanted was to open another chapter of my life that I couldn't handle. That night I barely slept. My mind was flooded with questions. What do I owe her? What if I fail? Am I just repeating my past mistakes? The next day, I went to the foster home to meet Sophia. I didn't know what to expect. A scared little girl? An angry one? A child who had been abandoned by her mother and now had a stranger standing in front of her, asking her to live with her? When I walked through the door, the foster mother, Mrs. Patterson, was standing by the door, a little too eager, a little too nervous. She had 2 younger kids running around her legs, and it was clear she had her hands full. But the moment she introduced me to Sophia, everything slowed down. Sophia was smaller than I expected, but she had these big, dark eyes that seemed older than her 11 years. "Sophia, this is Marina," Mrs. Patterson said, gently nudging the girl forward. Sophia looked at me with a quiet curiosity. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just stared. There was no recognition, no sense of family, just a stranger asking her to trust her. I crouched down to her level, unsure of how to start the conversation. "Hi, Sophia. I'm your mom's, your dad's. I guess I'm your family now." I stumbled over my words. How was I supposed to do this? She nodded silently, but didn't say anything. Her hair was a mess, and her clothes were a little too big for her. She was still holding onto a stuffed rabbit, its ear missing, as though it was the only thing she had left to cling to. We sat there in silence. I didn't know how to comfort her, or even if she wanted comforting. I didn't know if she was waiting for me to say something magical, but no words came, just the quiet buzz of a room filled with too many unspoken things. The next day, I called Angela and told her I was ready to take custody. It was a decision that felt like my heart had dropped into my stomach, but there was no turning back. The papers would be filed, and everything would change from that moment on. I wasn't ready, but I couldn't turn away. The first week with Sophia was a whirlwind. I'd like to say I figured it out quickly, but I didn't. Every time I turned around, something new threw me off balance. I hadn't realized how little I knew about taking care of a child, what to cook for dinner, how to help with homework, or even when she was really upset or just tired. It felt like I was walking through fog, and every step I took seemed uncertain. But then came the moment that would shift everything, the moment that made everything feel irreversible. It was a Wednesday evening, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, trying to work through some paperwork, when Sophia walked in. Her usual quietness had turned into something heavier, something I couldn't ignore. Her eyes were wide, and she was clutching her stuffed rabbit even tighter than usual. She stopped at the door, her small frame filling the space, but not quite enough to fill the silence. I glanced up at her, concerned. "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked down at her hands, wringing the toy between her fingers. Her head tilted slightly, and when she finally spoke, her voice was so small it barely filled the room. "Is it true?" she asked, her eyes barely meeting mine. "What's true, sweetie?" I said, leaning forward, not sure what she meant. Maybe it was about school or the new neighborhood. She didn't answer right away, instead taking a small step forward, closing the distance between us. Then, her words hit me harder than anything else she'd said before. "Is it true that my mom didn't want me?" Her question felt like a slap across the face. I froze. My heart lurched. How could she even ask that? My breath caught in my throat, but I knew I couldn't lie to her. Not anymore. Not after everything. I closed my eyes for a moment, gathering my thoughts, but the words felt like stones in my chest. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. I know it's confusing, and I'm not sure why your mom didn't do what she should have, but I can tell you this. She made a choice, and it wasn't about you. It was about her. But now, you're with me, and I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere." I wasn't sure if what I said was enough, or if it even made sense to her, but she nodded slowly, her little hands clutching the rabbit even tighter, almost as if it could shield her from the truth. She didn't speak for the rest of the night. She just sat quietly on the couch, looking out the window as the night deepened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, feeling the weight of her question bearing down on me. Did her mother not want her? I didn't know the full story of what had gone wrong. I had only gotten snippets of it, the court cases, the addiction, the visits I hadn't known about. But I had a sinking feeling that the truth would be more painful than I was ready for. I felt like I was walking a tightrope. I had to be everything for Sophia, her protector, her caregiver, her mother, while still managing my own unhealed wounds from my past. How could I be the right person for her when I still wasn't sure I had the answers for myself? The next day, Angela from Child Protective Services called. The tone in her voice was different this time. "Marina, I need to talk to you about something urgent." I knew immediately that this wasn't going to be an easy conversation. "You need to prepare yourself," she said. "There's something we found out. We got some details about Sophia's mother's past. It's complicated, and it's affecting her custody status." I clenched my fists. "What do you mean, complicated?" "Well, Lisa's past is worse than we thought. There's new information about how she's been incarcerated and how she hasn't shown any signs of recovery. And we have to prepare for the possibility that Sophia's mother may be in jail for a lot longer than we expected." My heart dropped. Lisa, Sophia's mother, wasn't just battling addiction. She was fighting a battle I had no idea about. And in the process, Sophia was caught in the middle of it. "Are you saying she might be in jail longer than I expected?" I asked. Angela sighed. "Yes. And we may need to talk about what happens if Lisa remains in custody for an extended time. You might have to become Sophia's permanent guardian." The thought felt like an avalanche. I had barely started this journey, barely learned Sophia's name, and now I was hearing that this was going to be long-term. Maybe forever. Could I handle that? I felt my chest tighten. I had already decided to take Sophia in temporarily, but I didn't realize the gravity of what I was stepping into. This wasn't just about taking her in for a few months. This was about raising her. I needed to think fast. What would it mean to have a daughter, a real daughter? Not a name on a birth certificate, but a little girl who had been through hell and needed someone to guide her to a better life. That night, Sophia came to me again, her eyes filled with an unspoken question. She stood in the doorway, hesitant but hopeful. "Are you sure you want me to stay?" she asked, her voice fragile. And that's when I realized. No matter how much I doubted myself, no matter how unsure I was, I couldn't turn away. I stood in the doorway of Sophia's bedroom, the weight of her question hanging in the air. She was standing there, in her oversized pajamas, her stuffed rabbit still clutched tightly in her small arms. "Are you sure you want me to stay?" she asked again, her voice almost a whisper. The innocence in her eyes cut through me. Here I was, A woman who had spent years building a life from broken pieces, trying to convince herself she was enough for this moment. But the truth was, I was terrified. I was terrified of failing her, of not being the mother she needed. It was one thing to be the caretaker, to make sure she ate, made it to school, had clothes on her back, but it was another thing to be the mother she needed. Her question echoed in my mind as I knelt down to her level. "I'm sure, Sophia," I said, my voice sounding more confident than I felt. "I'm sure. I know it's a lot, and it's a lot for both of us. But we'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this." She blinked, looking unsure, but relieved. She didn't smile, but her shoulders softened, a sign that she was starting to trust me. That was a start, at least. But trust takes time. I knew that now. The following days were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and constant second-guessing. I spent hours talking to social workers, trying to get a clearer picture of what I was getting into. I had no idea how to be a mother. I barely knew how to be myself some days. But something kept pushing me forward. Was it the bond I felt beginning to form with Sophia, even if it was still fragile? Or was it the guilt gnawing at me every time I thought about her mother's absence, wondering if I was doing the right thing? Maybe it was both. One night, while I was folding clothes in the living room, Sophia came over, standing hesitantly by the couch. "Can I talk to you?" I looked up, putting down the shirt I was folding. "Of course, sweetie. What's on your mind?" She sat next to me, clutching her rabbit, as always. She didn't look at me, but I could see the uncertainty in her posture. "What happens if—" she started, her voice trembling slightly. "If my mom never comes back?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. "I don't know, Sophia. I wish I had answers. But I promise you, you're not alone. If your mom doesn't come back, I'll be here, and we'll figure out what to do next." She nodded, but I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. She didn't let them fall, but the pain was there, sharp and raw. She was just a child, caught in the middle of an adult's mess. The next few weeks were hard. There were moments of laughter, little glimmers of hope when I saw Sophia finally smile, or when she tried a new activity and seemed proud of herself. But then there were the dark moments, the nightmares that would wake her in the middle of the night, the times she'd ask why her mother wasn't around, why she couldn't just go back to how things used to be. I couldn't give her answers. The best I could offer was a hug and a promise to stay by her side. And then, one evening, it all came crashing down. I got a call from Angela at Child Protective Services. I was sitting on the couch watching an old rerun of a show I had no interest in when the phone rang. It was already late, and I wasn't expecting anything important. "Marina, there's something we need to discuss." Angela's voice was different this time. Serious, urgent. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What's going on?" "There's been a development with Lisa," she said. "We've been following the case, and there's some new information we need to go over with you." I stood up, pacing in the small living room as she continued. "We found out that Lisa has been transferred to a different facility after a serious incident in her current jail. She's facing additional charges, and it's unclear how long she'll be incarcerated." I felt the floor fall away beneath me. The mother of Sophia, my daughter now, was in deeper trouble than I could have ever imagined. "Does Sophia know?" I asked, my voice trembling. "No, but she will need to know at some point," Angela replied. I nodded, despite the panic building inside of me. "I'll talk to her." When I told Sophia what I had learned, it was like a storm passed through her. Her face crumbled, and she sat down hard on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit like it was a lifeline. "Is she going to die in jail?" Sophia asked, her voice barely a whisper. The question, coming from the girl who had already lost so much, cut through me. I didn't know what to say. "I don't know, Sophia, but we'll get through this. We'll make it through together." And just like that, everything felt more real. This wasn't just about managing a child's routine or filling out forms. This was about navigating her trauma, her confusion, her fear. And I was her guide. Whether I was ready or not, I was her guide. That night, as I sat in my bed, I heard Sophia crying softly down the hall. I wanted to rush to her, to fix everything. But I knew there were some things I couldn't fix. But I could be there. That was all I had to offer. And maybe that was enough for now. The days stretched on, each one blending into the next, but the weight of everything was starting to sink in deeper. I had always been good at keeping things simple. My life was organized, planned, predictable. Now, everything felt like a constant balancing act, walking a tightrope without a safety net. I was terrified of falling. Sophia seemed to be doing better. She was opening up more, laughing more, even picking up a few hobbies here and there, drawing, playing her guitar. Small things, but they meant the world to me. Yet there were still moments when I'd catch her staring out the window, her rabbit tucked into her arms like a shield, or when she'd ask about her mother in that hopeful way, as if the woman who had abandoned her might suddenly walk back into her life. One afternoon, after a long day of running errands, I found myself sitting on the couch, looking through paperwork for Sophia's school registration. The weight of it all, the responsibility, the uncertainty, was starting to wear me down. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know how to handle everything. The weight of being the sole caregiver, of being the only person she could rely on, it was becoming overwhelming. Just then, Mike called. I hadn't spoken to him much lately. Our last conversation hadn't gone well. He had been critical of my decision to take Sophia in, and though I tried to brush it off, his words stung. "How's everything going with the kid?" Mike's voice was gruff, but not unkind. I hesitated. "It's going," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just going?" Mike asked, clearly skeptical. "You're taking on a lot, Marina. Are you sure this is the right choice?" I could feel my patience starting to fray. What's that supposed to mean? "You don't know the first thing about raising a kid. What if this all backfires? You're already barely making ends meet as it is." His words felt like a punch. I knew he meant well, but right then it felt like he was questioning my every move. I wasn't a perfect person, but I was trying to give Sophia something better, something more stable than what I had been given. "Mike, I don't need your judgment right now," I said, my voice wavering. "I'm doing the best I can." There was a long pause on the other end. Mike's voice softened. "I get it. I just don't want you to end up resenting her, or yourself. This is a huge commitment. You've always been a loner, Marina. I'm worried this is too much for you." The worry in his voice felt suffocating. I knew he was right in some ways. This was too much. But I couldn't back out now. Sophia needed me. "I'm not resenting her," I said quietly. "I'm just scared. I don't know what I'm doing, Mike." "Then maybe you should talk to someone. Therapy, or—" "I don't have time for therapy," I cut him off. "I've got enough to worry about." I could hear Mike sighing on the other end. Okay, but don't do this alone. You need support. You can't keep everything inside and expect it to be okay. I just want what's best for you." "I know," I muttered, but it felt hollow. The truth was, I didn't feel like I had anyone I could turn to. My family was distant. Mike, Carol, they had their opinions, but they didn't get it. Later that week, things got worse. Sophia had started asking about her mother again. She had been quiet about it for a while, but now it was constant. Why doesn't she call me? Why doesn't she want me anymore? It was like a wound had been reopened. I wasn't sure how to explain to an 11-year-old that her mother had chosen drugs over her, that the woman who was supposed to protect her had left her behind. How do you make sense of that? How do you fix it when you don't even have the answers yourself? One night, I sat with Sophia on the couch, trying to distract her with a movie, but she wasn't paying attention. She was staring at the screen, but not really seeing it. The silence between us was thick. "I don't think I can do this, Marina," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think I can keep pretending everything's okay." My chest tightened at the sound of her voice. "You don't have to pretend, Sophia. I'm here for you. You're not alone in this." "I'm not talking about pretending for you," she said, her voice full of hurt. "I'm talking about pretending for me." I didn't know what to say. Her words crushed me. I had no idea how much she was holding inside, how much pain she was trying to navigate on her own. She wasn't just dealing with the loss of her mother. She was facing a world of unknowns, no family to rely on, no sense of stability. I pulled her into a hug, even though it felt like the least I could do. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I wish I could fix everything, but I can't. All I can do is be here, and I promise I'll stay. You don't have to face this alone anymore." But even as I spoke those words, doubts gnawed at me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to make things better. The burden of it all was beginning to crack me. The sleepless nights, the endless paperwork, the constant worry that I wasn't enough. I could feel myself fraying at the edges, just as Sophia was starting to do. But I had no choice. I couldn't stop now. She needed me. The cracks began to show in other places, too. My finances were becoming tighter as Sophia's needs grew. The kinship payments weren't enough to cover everything. I was having to dip into savings, and even then, I could barely keep up. I couldn't ask for help. No one seemed to understand what I was going through. I wasn't even sure I understood it myself. At work, I started making mistakes. Small things, like forgetting to log an order or missing a meeting. But at a job like mine, Small mistakes add up fast. I could feel my supervisor's eyes on me, and I knew they were starting to notice. And through it all, Sophia was slipping further away. She wasn't the same girl she was when I first met her. Quiet, unsure, but still hopeful. Now there was a sharpness to her. The walls she had built around her heart were getting higher, and I was struggling to break through. The weeks after that felt like I was walking through thick mud. Everything was harder than I expected. Every decision, every conversation, every single moment felt like a weight I couldn't lift. I thought I was prepared, but I was so far from being ready for what this had turned into. There were days when I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I'd started to dread waking up, knowing the day would be another round of trying to stay ahead of the mounting pressure. Sophia was still struggling, still holding onto her rabbit like it was her only connection to the world. I tried to do what I could, but I wasn't enough. It felt like I was failing her every minute. Every time I saw her staring out the window, I knew she was wondering if her mother would ever come back. I knew she was wondering if she could ever feel like she belonged. I wasn't even sure I belonged in my own life anymore. I was sitting in the kitchen one afternoon, staring at the bills I had to pay. The numbers were blurring together. My phone was on the table, buzzing incessantly with messages from Mike and Carol. Mike had been sending me angry texts, demanding to know why I was still keeping Sophia around. "You're not built for this. You can't handle it. You'll burn out." It felt like my own family was rejecting me. I was doing everything in my power to take care of Sophia, to give her a home, but all I ever got was their doubt, their judgment. They didn't get it. They didn't understand that I wasn't just trying to raise a child. I was trying to fix something broken inside myself, something that had always been broken. I was trying to prove to myself that I could be good enough for someone, for her. And it wasn't working. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from Angela at CPS. I had been dreading this call, but I knew it was coming. "Marina, I need to talk to you. We've got some new information about Sophia's case. It's urgent." I set the phone down slowly, my stomach churning. Every part of me was exhausted, stretched thin, just waiting for the next blow to land. Sophia came into the kitchen just as I was about to call Angela back. She was standing in the doorway, looking at me with those big, sad eyes. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice small and hesitant. It was like she could sense my breaking point, even though she had no idea what it meant. I didn't know how to answer her. What was I supposed to say? That I was falling apart? That I was failing at being the mother she deserved? I didn't have the strength to hold it together anymore. "I don't know, Sophia," I whispered. "I'm trying, but sometimes I feel like I'm not enough." Her face softened, and for a second, I saw her, really saw her, as more than just a girl I was taking care of. She was someone who had endured so much, and yet she was still standing there, asking if I was okay. She was trying to take care of me, when it should have been the other way around. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't want you to see me like this." She stepped forward, the stuffed rabbit still clutched in her arms, and without saying a word, she hugged me. It was a simple gesture, but it broke something inside of me. I hadn't realized how much I needed comfort until that moment. But even in the moments when Sophia showed me kindness, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was drowning. Mike and Carol were still distant, criticizing me from the sidelines. I could feel the isolation wrapping around me like a blanket I couldn't shake off. I was alone in this, completely alone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing the soft rustle of Sophia's breathing from down the hall. The room felt too big. The silence felt too loud. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw everything out the window and start over, but I couldn't. I couldn't leave Sophia. She was the only person I had left. But was I the right person for her? I had no answers, just doubts. The next morning, I got a call from Angela. "Marina, there's been a change in Sophia's case." Her voice was tight, like she didn't know how to soften the blow. I sat up straight in bed, the weight of her words already pressing on me. What's happened? What's changed? Her mother, Lisa, she's been offered parole. We have to make decisions about Sophia's future now. I froze. Parole. Lisa was coming back into the picture, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for the chaos that would follow if she wanted her daughter back. "What does that mean for me?" I asked, my voice shaky. "It means you'll have to prepare for a custody battle. If Lisa gets out, she will likely fight for Sophia. We'll be reviewing the case, but there's a chance she'll want to reclaim custody." The words hit like a punch to the stomach. I could feel everything inside me crumble. All I had worked for, everything I had given, might be ripped away. "No," I whispered, more to myself than to Angela. "I won't let her go back to that life." I understand, Marina, but we have to be prepared. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, feeling the weight of the world pressing on my shoulders. Everything was slipping through my fingers. I sat there for hours after that phone call. It felt like everything around me was closing in. My doubts, my fears, the suffocating weight of not knowing if I was doing the right thing. The house seemed too quiet, too still. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt like a reminder that nothing was as it should be. It was a turning point. The news about Lisa's parole was like a hard slap, a cruel reminder that nothing about this situation was going to be easy. I had been pretending that everything would settle down, that maybe, just maybe, Sophia and I could find some semblance of peace. But that hope was starting to feel naive. The truth was, Sophia's mother was coming back into the picture, and I had to make sure Sophia was going to be safe. That meant standing up, not just for her, but for myself. I couldn't let Lisa come back into her life after everything she had done. I couldn't let Sophia fall into the same toxic cycle. I knew that now. I knew that Sophia deserved more than just being another piece in Lisa's mess. The thought of Sophia having to go back to her mother made my stomach turn. I had seen the pain in her eyes, heard her quietly ask if her mother didn't want her anymore. How could Lisa, after all the damage she'd done, think she could just waltz back into Sophia's life? I couldn't let that happen. I had to make a decision that would define the rest of Sophia's future. The next morning, I called Angela back. My hands were shaking as I held the phone to my ear. Angela, I want to fight for full custody of Sophia. I'm not letting her go back to that life. I can't. I'll do whatever it takes. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Angela's voice, calm but understanding. Marina, I can't promise that it will be easy. A custody battle can take months. But if you're committed to this, we'll support you through it. We'll do everything we can to make sure Sophia stays with you. I'm ready. My voice was firmer now, resolute. I don't care how long it takes. I'll fight for her. Angela explained the next steps, and though she didn't sugarcoat anything, I could hear the confidence in her voice. She believed in me. That belief, that tiny spark of hope, fueled the fire that was slowly burning inside me. I spent the next few days in a blur. Sophia was still adjusting, still holding on to her rabbit like it was her only piece of security in the world. I could see the cracks in her facade, her small, sad smiles, the way she pulled away when I tried to comfort her, her constant questions about her mother. It broke my heart. But I wasn't going to break, not this time. The fear of losing her, the fear of Sophia being ripped from my life, finally clicked something inside me. I had spent years running from my past, trying to escape it, trying to stay out of the chaos. But this was different. This wasn't just about me. This was about Sophia. She needed someone to fight for her, someone to make sure her future was going to be better than the past she'd been handed. That night, after dinner, Sophia came to sit next to me on the couch, her little body curling up beside mine, her rabbit tucked into her lap. She was quiet, her eyes staring at the TV, but I knew she wasn't watching. She was thinking. I turned to her, gently placing a hand on hers. Sophia, I need to talk to you about something. Her eyes met mine, wide and nervous. What is it? There's a lot going on with your mom, and there's a chance she's going to try and take you back when she gets out of jail. I could see the tension in her shoulders. She was holding her breath, waiting for the rest of the news. But I squeezed her hand, forcing myself to remain calm, despite the fury bubbling up inside me. But I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to make sure you're safe. You're not going back to that life. I'll make sure of it. Sophia looked at me, her lip trembling, the weight of my words sinking in. Then, slowly, she nodded, a silent acknowledgement that she trusted me. And in that moment, I knew, no matter what happened next, no matter how difficult it got, I wasn't going to let Sophia down. Not this time. She wasn't just a little girl I was taking care of. She was my daughter now. The following day, I called Angela again, telling her that I was ready to start the legal process for full custody. I was no longer unsure, no longer stumbling through each day hoping things would fall into place. I knew what I had to do now. I was ready to fight. I could feel the change inside me. The woman who had once been too afraid to take control of her own life was gone. The woman who had always been scared of failing was now standing tall, ready to face whatever came her way. I was going to protect Sophia. I was going to be the mother she needed, whether or not I felt ready. The days that followed felt like a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and legal meetings. Every moment was consumed with the fight for Sophia's future. I had made the decision to stand firm, to protect her from the chaos that her mother had brought into her life. But as the days passed, the reality of the fight ahead began to set in. The court system was slow, and the legal fees piled up. I had no idea how I was going to afford everything, but I refused to let money be the reason Sophia would be taken away from me. Angela from CPS was a constant ally, helping me navigate the complex legal landscape, but the road ahead was long, and it was lonely. I didn't have the support I thought I'd have. Mike had pulled away more and more. I hadn't heard from Carol much either, despite her initial attempts to help. They didn't understand the magnitude of what I was doing. They didn't understand that this wasn't just about giving Sophia a roof over her head. This was about building her a future, giving her a chance at a life that wasn't dictated by a mother's neglect. The first blow came in the form of Mike's call. It had been a week since I'd told him about the custody battle, and I had been hoping he'd come around. But that hope faded quickly. "Marina, you need to stop this." His voice was thick with frustration. "This is a mess. You've got no idea what you're getting yourself into." "I know exactly what I'm getting into, Mike." My voice was sharp, more so than I had expected. "I'm fighting for Sophia. This isn't about you or anyone else. This is about her having a chance at something better. She's not your responsibility." His words were like a slap to the face. "You don't owe her anything. You've done enough. You've got enough on your plate. She's just going to drag you down." I felt the anger rise inside of me, but I pushed it down, my grip tightening on the phone. "You don't get it, Mike. She's already here. She's already in my life. I can't turn my back on her now." "You're making a huge mistake." He sighed heavily, and I could hear the judgment in his voice. "You're going to ruin your life over a child that isn't even yours." I bit my lip, holding back tears. "She's mine now." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then he hung up. The coldness in the air between us felt heavier than ever before. It wasn't just Mike. The rest of my family remained distant, offering judgment rather than support. Carol had stopped calling, and my parents, well, they had never been part of this fight to begin with. I was alone in this, completely alone. And Sophia, she felt it too. The pressure was weighing on her. I could see the cracks starting to form in her facade again. She would retreat to her room, curling up in a ball with her rabbit, her face buried in the pillow. I could feel her pulling away from me, like she was afraid of getting too close, afraid of getting hurt. I didn't know how to fix it. She had been through so much already, and I couldn't erase any of it. But I could be there for her. I could be the one person she could depend on. No matter what it cost me, I would be that person. The legal battles were draining, but I was making progress. Slowly but surely, the courts were starting to see things my way. Sophia was staying with me, for now. The custody arrangements were still pending, but it was clear that I had a strong case. But the emotional toll it was taking on me was something I wasn't prepared for. The weight of being Sophia's protector, her advocate, and her mother, it was all-consuming. There were days when I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling like I was failing her. That's when Angela called me again. "Marina, I think it's time we start thinking about your future with Sophia. You're doing great, but you need to start planning for what happens when this is all over." "What do you mean?" I asked, confusion rising in my chest. "I know you're focused on the custody battle right now, but there's more to this. You need to think about her future, about school, about getting her the help she needs. You need to get everything in place for her long-term well-being." Her words hit me hard. For the first time in a long time, I realized that this wasn't just about the fight. It was about creating a life for Sophia, a stable, loving life, and I needed to start laying the groundwork. I couldn't keep putting everything on hold. I had to think about the long term, not just the fight. Sophia needed to heal. She needed stability, love, and a future that wasn't defined by her past. And I was the only one who could give that to her. So I started planning. I started making decisions about Sophia's education. I found a therapist who specialized in trauma for kids. I researched every resource available to make sure she had everything she needed to succeed. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about thriving. It was also about facing the inevitable, the confrontation that had been looming over us. The moment when Lisa would learn that she wasn't getting Sophia back. I knew that would be the hardest part, and I wasn't sure how Sophia would handle it. I didn't know what kind of woman Lisa would be when she finally came face to face with me. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't going to let fear make my decisions for me. The finalization of the custody battle came quickly after the months of fighting. The papers were signed, the judge's decision was final, and Sophia was officially mine, for good. But that moment, when the gavel fell and everything that had been uncertain finally became clear, didn't bring the relief I had imagined. Instead, it left me standing there in the middle of the court, holding Sophia's hand, both of us staring at each other as though the weight of the past few months was finally sinking in. It was done. We had won. But winning didn't erase the scars that had already been left on her. It didn't make the pain of everything that had happened disappear. It didn't even make me feel like a perfect mom. But it did give me something that felt far more important: peace. The weeks following the court ruling were quieter, less chaotic. Sophia had already started to adjust to the idea of living with me long term, though there were still moments when she would close off or pull away, as though she was still trying to protect herself from the hurt of the past. But those moments were fewer. With each passing day, she began to show signs of healing, smiling more, opening up about her day at school, talking about friends and dreams. She was growing, learning, and becoming stronger every day. I didn't expect her to heal overnight, and I wasn't sure how long it would take, but I knew I was in this for the long haul. I was her mother now, not just in name, but in action, and I wasn't going anywhere. I still spent long nights thinking about the choices I had made, the decisions that had led me here, and inevitably, I thought about Sophia's birth mother, Lisa. She was still in jail, still facing the consequences of her actions. I didn't know if she would ever change, or if she would ever try to rebuild a relationship with her daughter. Part of me hoped she wouldn't, not because I didn't want Sophia to have a chance at reconciliation, but because Lisa had already chosen her path, and that path had been paved with neglect, lies, and betrayal. I couldn't let Sophia go back to that. But I also understood something important. Sophia needed to heal on her terms, not mine. She needed to come to terms with the reality of her mother's absence in her own way. I couldn't push her to forgive or forget. All I could do was give her the space to process, to grow, and to know that I would always be here no matter what. Months later, I found myself standing in front of a mirror, staring at a woman I barely recognized. The Marina who had been afraid of everything, the woman who didn't believe she could be anyone's mother, she was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had faced her fears head-on and come out the other side. I had faced the hardest battle of my life, and I had won. But more importantly, I had helped Sophia find her way back to a future that wasn't defined by her past. I had given her a chance to be a kid again, to grow, to dream. And in return, she had given me a purpose, a reason to keep fighting when everything felt impossible. Looking back on everything, I realized that the greatest lesson I learned wasn't about winning the custody battle or proving anyone wrong. The lesson was about finding the strength to love, even when it felt like there was nothing left to give. It was about showing up, day after day, and being there for the people who needed me. And it was about forgiving myself for the mistakes I had made, for the doubts I had carried, and for the things I couldn't control. Sophia was my family now, and in some ways, she had saved me just as much as I had saved her. The future is still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I don't feel like I'm drowning. I don't feel like I'm falling apart. I feel like I'm standing on solid ground, and Sophia, my daughter, she's standing with me. Together, we're building a new life, a life that's just ours,